The latest Doctor Who magazine reveals the unbelievable truth that the War Chief was made the Master to make the epic war games even more epic, more brilliant, that it was an irresistible urge to do it. It was fun to do. That making the War Chief the Master made the audience invest in the character more and turned the finale of the War Games into one of the best Doctor Who finales ever seen. All those are the words of executive producer Phil Collinson, with only one writing credit for Emmerdale in 1998 on his TV CV, and editor Benjamin Cook's words, and he's only got TV writing credits on becoming YouTube, for YouTube. That's it. Changing, disrespecting the character and storyline of two of the best writers in Doctor Who, both with long writing pedigrees, and then slighting Edward Brayshaw's magnificent performance as needing more investment through their editing, and devaluing the dramatic and menacing entrance of Roger Delgado's Master in Terror of the Autons, to make their version of the War Games more epic and talked about, they had to undermine the introduction of the Master, undermining Terrance Dicks again. Can you believe this? Remember, all this was unnecessary. I saw no petitions for this. No quotes from Barry Letts or Terrance Dicks or Malcolm Hulke referencing the War Chief as being the Master, or where they wished they'd gone back and changed it. None of it. Just like RTD has wrecked the creation of Davros, the Celestial Toymaker, and Sutek, we have his underlings at Bad Wolf now putting their wrecking ball to the War Chief and to the War Games itself. There's been very strong negative reaction to this. Very strong negative reaction to this. You can see Philip Morris, who obviously was the guy who restored and found the Enemy of the World and Web of Fear episodes in Nigeria. Not happy, calling it totally disrespectful. And you've got Michael Herbert there, who happens to be the biographer for Malcolm Hulke, so he knows his stuff, saying it's not what Malcolm Hulke and Terrance Dicks wrote, either in the War Games or in later serials featuring the Master. Stop trashing their legacy with this fan fiction. Now, never mind that. This is their explanation for it. And these are Phil Collinson's words. In my head, the War Chief was always the Master, and we've lent into that. We've got Murray Gold and Dudley Simpson's Master themes under some of those big confrontations he has with Patrick Troughton. It's brilliant. Such brilliant Doctor Who. But when you imagine it's the Doctor and the Master, it becomes even more epic. You end up investing so much more in that character. I mean, what a finale for the second Doctor. I think it's one of the best Doctor Who finales there's ever been. Those have been authenticated. That's in the Doctor Who magazine. He's executive producer on current Doctor Who, and he thinks this is acceptable. Take a look at these words again. In my head, this is not a personal fiefdom. These are supposed to be custodians of a show. It's not a show owned by them. They are just producing it at the moment. But I feel the philosophy is a bit different. In my head, the War Chief was always the Master. Now, in my head, the War Chief was always the War Chief, and the Master first introduced in Terror of the Autons with Roger Delgado. Why would you tamper with that? Funnily enough, when I watched Day of the Daleks, in a way, the controller, I thought I'm mistaken, as a 4-year-old me, thought he was the Master, but I was wrong. And since then, I've read the book and I've seen the program, and the controller is not the Master. And I can live with that. I'm only a fan. I don't rule the universe. However, Phil Collinson says, people of the world, people of the universe, please attend carefully. In my head, the War Chief was always the Master, so we've gone for it. So they've added deliberately, we knew it, didn't we? The Murray Gold and the Dudley Simpson Master themes to trample all over Edward Brayshaw's and Patrick Troughton's confrontation. The music dominates there. Um, but I mean, are you happy with what Phil Collinson has said here? But when you imagine it's the Doctor and the Master in the War Games, it's even more epic. There's a counterbalance to that, you could argue, that actually making the Master's introduction be in the War Games takes away the attention from it's the second Doctor's regeneration story. It's his final story. Why undermine that? In Caves of Androzani, it's all about Peter Davison. Don't undermine that. And I could list every Doctor, of course. But, the Master turned up in Keep of Traken and then Legopolis. So he wasn't the main event in Legopolis. Tom Baker was the main event in Legopolis. Why are we doing this in the War Games? When nobody asked for it, it is unnecessary. I don't think it adds any drama or suspense. I don't think it makes it more epic. Why do you need to make a 10-part War Games final second Doctor story more epic? Please tell me what you're missing. And the other slight that I mentioned is, he says, you end up investing so much more in the character of the War Chief by making him the Master. What, did Edward Brayshaw not do enough? Was his performance not sufficient enough? Was it? I thought it was a magnificent performance. It's shocking to see him later on do Rent-A-Ghost. Here, he's so powerful. And you needed no music. You needed no special editing. You needed no nods or winks to say, this character's even more important, by the way. He came across as important. We did not need any interference from people who don't really, let's be honest, have any TV writing credits. And instead, they are destroying, changing, tampering, trampling all over. Writers of pedigree of Terrance Dicks and Malcolm Hulke, they're happy to do that. Wow. Gosh. Where's the professional courtesy? The professional respect? Wow. So, the other argument there is, he says, we did this to make it more epic, and we did this to make that character basically more interesting to the fans. Who are these? Or who is this modern audience they're trying to deal with? Everybody knows the War Chief is the War Chief, and everybody knows Roger Delgado arrives as the Master. Nobody was confused. So who's this modern audience who needs all these joined dots and can't cope with an epic war game story? They need even more epicness. And then, of course, do you want to argue with this bit? What a finale for the second Doctor. I think it's one of the best Doctor Who finales has ever been. Do you mean timey-wimey before you changed it? Because I thought it was a big finale, having to meet the Time Lords for the first time, put on trial, forced to go into exile. Wasn't that big enough? Oh no, it's now one of the best Doctor Who finales there's ever been. Oh, you're marking your own homework now. Fascinating concept that. Let's never allege that you are sounding arrogant. Marking your own homework. You're very happy to change Terrance Dicks's work. You're very, very happy, no problem at all, to change Malcolm Hulke's work. You're very happy to undermine another producer's introduction of a Moriarty-style character in their era and just get your mitts all over it. They're the cats that got the cream. Listen to this from Benjamin Cook, the editor for the War Games in Colour. He might call himself the War Chief, but he's so clearly the Master. Inserting a surprise appearance from the Master into a 55-year-old story was just irresistible. Oh, I bet it was. I bet it was. RTD, rubber stamping everything, saying, get your mitts all over 61 years of Doctor Who. Do what you want with it. We own it now. And if they moan out there, they don't understand, and actually it doesn't matter, and they can go and touch grass and do whatever. So it was just an irresistible urge for them to touch somebody else's work and change it, even though that person has never, ever said they wanted anything done to the War Chief. And he continues, and to do it solely through music and colour was even more fun. What's this? A personal pet project? You've got Phil Collinson saying, you know, in his eyes, it was always the war chief being the master. Well, you maybe, not me, and certainly not a lot of people. You've then got Benjamin Cook, who's now done two omnibuses in colour of key serials from the 60s, and he says it was fun. Now, I would really want more credit given to the people who actually came up with these characters, structured these complex plots, had the imagination to come up with these worlds. I'd love more respect for them, and therefore maybe to veer away from tampering, changing, amending, or really erasing the whole essence of the war chief and changing it into a different domain. I think it's unfair. I think it's professionally disrespectful. I think it's not. I think it's totally discourteous. All for their own their own personal preference and for their own pet project. And so you get a horrible understanding of how Bad Wolf operates under RTD with Doctor Who. There's no creativity. They're grafting your ideas onto somebody. Their ideas onto somebody else's work. They're putting themselves ahead of the fans. They're anything but custodians. Like the Doctor himself, they can't help but interfere. But to be honest, it's not the Doctor analogy I'm going to make. It's the time meddler. They're more like the time meddler, adding anachronistic things in history to stories, like new models, yeah, new graphics, new Who doctors, a Pertwee regeneration. Like, whatever they want to do, they'll do it. It's no longer Doctor Who under Bad Wolf and RTD. Do you know what it is? It's Doctored Who. I repeat, it's not Doctor Who. It's Doctored Who. Now, on my detox the other day, we had a debate about the Master. We had a debate about whether the Master is the War Chief. Me and Dan locked horns. It's a fascinating encounter. And, you know, like and subscribe, please. Repost this. I've got more to say about the TV ratings too. But please, take a look at this. It's quite entertaining. I thought it was a great performance as for the War Chief, and he stands in his own right.
He does.
I just don't know why, and what? Because he's got facial hair, he must be Roger Delgado. I mean, do me a favor. Look, I find this the bit that was unnecessary completely. You've got other fans there. He has his own stream, Matthew Toffaloo. Yeah, the Master stuff was the straw that broke. Yeah. The straw that broke the camel's back for me. This was an interesting debate that was going on. You've got Philip Morris, who's obviously, found episodes like Web of Fear and Enemy of the World, saying it's a matter Terrance Dicks always insisted the War Chief was not the Master. He even wrote a new adventures novel proving it. So this is totally disrespectful. Now, I've talked to Michael Herbert, the Malcolm Hulke biographer. This is not in the game. You have taken other people's work and imprinted something that they did not want on it.
But texts get their own life once they're created, and there are lots of fans that attribute that in their head canon as, he could be. There's nothing that's in the on screen which is what is canon, not an audio adventure or a text or a novel or whatever. What's on the screen, it could be either way, and I don't think it's disrespectful. I think it's I think it's fun, and for young fans or new fans, look, you got 61 years of Doctor Who. Like, how fun is it to pick up an old episode and make those connections?
But you make it
treat.
But that's like me picking up a Charles Dickens script. Oh, Charles Dickens is dead now, so I can do what I want to it. And my adaptation, darling, is going to have Ebenezer Scrooge, and he was dropped on his head when he was a baby, and his dad abused him, so this is why he's like this. No, no, that was not in the script. That is not the story. That is not the character. If you want to write that, you write your own blooming show. You know,
So where's the line there, Brendan? Because I mean, it wasn't in color, so should we not colorize it?
The colorization argument I buy into, Dan, because the colorization just for some people apparently it makes it more broadcastable or presentable to the 2024 niceties. And I'm all for Doctor Who being seen by more people.
But then you've got commercial decisions and commercial realities, and you've got the reality is that, you know, the amount of work that goes into colorizing, they have to come up with an edit because they just can't afford to spend the money on it at the moment to get it to that quality.
So, so Doug,
the minute you've got to edit, you got to redo the score. You've got to make you've got to start playing with it by necessity. So it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, tricky.
Doug, where do you stand on this, Doug? Because you can see that me and Dan disagree.
I'm sort of listening very carefully. And this is tricky for me because I haven't seen the War Games, and I was going to ask Dan what his view on regards to the edit, if he felt maybe the guts of the story was maintained. As far as your question, Brendan, I'm okay with changes as long as we have the originals. The master thing, personally, I preferred if it was more ambiguous, but it didn't upset me. My problem will be, and I guess I'm only going to watch it when I buy the Blu-ray, and I'm just wondering, Dan, you've watched it. Did you feel the guts of the story was there, or did you feel they cut too much out? Because you've recently seen the full one too.
Look, I thought it was watchable, and I thought that they did a reasonable job. I would have liked a little bit more at the beginning, where they kind of remember in the War Games, they jumped the first episode. It takes you a while to realize something's wrong with the World War I setting. It's not immediately obvious. There's a little bit more mystery. I feel like in this one, we're jumping, like they basically jump straight into getting captured, and then they basically cut out a whole bunch of stuff and get straight to the court-martial. And for me, that you don't get that mysterious build-up that you do in the original.
But why don't the music came into play again, though, didn't it? Because the music became quite overbearing again.
Can I just say though, I watched the original 10 episodes a couple of weeks ago, just so that I had it fresh in my mind what the original was like, and there is a limited amount of score across the 10 episodes, and it's highly repetitive, and it is, you know, when you binge watch it, it's quite it's quite over the top, the amount of repetitive theme, which Marquez has done, I think, a good job of keeping it, but actually like bringing it down a notch and just making it.
Marquez is being asked to do as he's told. I understand that, and I'm not criticizing Marquez. These are all skilled people.
I thought he did a good job.
Yeah, these are all skilled people. The point is, somebody is in charge of the edit button, and somebody's in charge of the volume levels. And just like people used to criticize, I love Murray Gold's music, but Murray Gold's music in the first era of RTD was too loud. And sometimes was too much. Now, that's nothing against Murray Gold. It's just that's a choice by the director. And I think the same has happened in Daleks in colour, and the same has happened in the War Games in colour. There were moments when I thought, do you know, Patrick Troughton is acting his socks off. Episode 3, he plays it differently as if he's an inspector. And this is his last show, and he's acting like hell. And there's music going all right over it when actually it doesn't in the original. Because I saw the War Games last week, and you think, hold on, there's moments when you should let the actors act, and there's no need. Patrick Troughton does not need music to add menace or thrill or anything, and I think that's just disrespect again. I'm sorry, and so no, I can see what you're saying, Dan. I just think some of the choices are just a bit too on it, too over it, too swamping it. You know, Marquez, tart the music up, please, so that it's not repetitive. Of course, he'll do that, and he's skillful. He'll do that. but then you just don't swamp every scene with it. That's all. James, did you see it?
I've seen like the old war games. I haven't seen the colorized one yet. But the entire concept, it's like it was shot for low signs. Like, it was black and white, and trying to like add stuff in it doesn't make much sense to me. I can see the argument that it looks better on the screen when you've colorized it, but if they're cutting things out as well and running all over it with the music like that, I'm not even sure I want to watch it.
Yeah. Now, I tell you one thing I'm going to do in the next few weeks is I'm going to watch Terror of the Autons, just to confirm to myself that the way the Master was introduced was that the Doctor won't recognize him, the Doctor won't know him, and that, you know, you've got to be very careful. And I want to see that first reaction of John Pertwee's Doctor with Roger Delgado's Master. And of course, Barry Letts, who was running the show then and was so responsible, he was brought back to keep an eye on JNT with season, was it season 18? You know, let's just remember here, folks, Barry Letts, great producer of Doctor Who, with a great script editor and writer for Doctor Who, Terrence Dicks. They sat down and they invented the Master, their Moriarty to the Doctor Sherlock Holmes. And they weren't ever in any of their discussions. Anybody out there, you please tell me an interview where Terrence Dicks or Barry Letts said, we thought when we saw the War Master that, sorry, the War Chief, that he was the sorry. This is fans playing with something they don't own. And here's my question to Dan, Doug, and James here and the thread. If there's a new episode of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire quiz show, and the question is, when did the Master first appear in Doctor Who? Now, you've got a quandary here, because if I'm a Doctor Who fan who knows everything that's been made, I'm going, well, it should be Terror of the Autons. However, we've now got some clever dicks who've put him into the blooming war games. So what's my answer for £1 million?
Okay, well, for a start, I think we're overblowing this. For people that haven't seen it, the only thing they don't, it's not like they come out and say this is definitively the Master.
It's just the music, isn't it?
They just played the Master Vainglorious music at the point that the Doctor and he lock eyes, and they recognize that each other are Time Lords.
So why didn't they play the Rani music, or why didn't they play?
Well, to be fair though, they were playing the Voyage of the Dare music in this week's Christmas special.
Yes.
So I think this is symptomatic of the whole current era. Is for what was supposed to be a new start, we seem to be recycling a hell of a lot of things at the moment. In this case, I think we've recycled stuff in this one. But you know, I think it's reasonable if someone, when you see the War Master on screen, someone who's an Ainley Master or a Delgado Master fan is going to immediately go, "Ooh, is that the Master?" That's a reasonable reaction, especially when he's the Time Lord.
However,
and to be fair, Brendan, in Terror of the Autons, this supports the headcanon here. The Time Lords come to Earth and actually tip the Doctor off and say, the High Council actually thought that you needed to know that he was here. So he doesn't actually just recognize the Master. He actually gets told by the Time Lords that the Master's here for his own protection.
No, but that's what I mean. But that doesn't change the headcanon. That just shows you that because they wouldn't have to tip him off, because he'd recognize him from the war games if he was the Master.
But he's dead.
Well, except he's not dead, because they played the regeneration dead. You see, I mean, gosh, Doug, all they were doing, it was dead innocent, is every time the War Chief appeared, every time he appeared, they were playing the music from Sound of the Drums, John Sims, and some Roger Delgado music touches. Gosh, why would they be doing that if he's not meant to be? I mean, hello.
I know why they did it. Because people like us are going to be talking about it and giving them more air.
They're putting us with a stick.
About this.
Or some new fans might pick it up and have a look at it based on.
Yeah, I think there was a commercial decision made and maybe a bit of cheekiness